Thanks everybody for being here again.
Morning.
Today's the first day that we've been at the Advanced Energy Center when it hasn't rained. So hopefully a few more people will come in.
Brad's on his way.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have lots of slides today, lots of news and an intro for you as well. I'll just mention that we're here at the Advanced Energy Center for Sonoma Clean Power, but Sean saw that we're pretty much all returning people, so he's not going to give an intro today. I'll start by introducing myself and then we'll get to regular intros. I'm Sonia Carey. I'm president of NBEAA, and next month, Cecilia will be president. Yeah, Cecilia will be president, and we'll talk more about leadership opportunities in a second. Yeah, I'll stop sharing in a second. I just wanted to mention quickly at the beginning here that last month we were in medium community level of COVID, and now we're back to low, so that's good. And hopefully people still feel comfortable coming in here if they feel healthy, or you can always choose Zoom going forward, because I think we're pretty committed to the hybrid meeting since we've got it going pretty well. As I mentioned before, Cecilia and I are going to talk a little bit about VinFast and Polestar, so I'll probably try to break by 11:10, whether we have all the news covered or not. We'll try to shorten our intros to make that all happen. So now I'm going to stop sharing and let us all see each other, and start with intros unless someone has anything real quick to say. Welcome. Okay, let's start online. David Peacock.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Dave Heacock in Fairfield. Haven't been here for a couple of meetings, but still driving my 1985 Avante and making minor improvements here and there. Driving it as much as I can without the cell tower interference, but still a problem. I was just talking to John there, and I talked to a commercial pilot friend of mine, and he said these 5G towers have actually started interfering with radar altimeters, and what they're doing is, I guess, increasing the shielding for the altimeters, and they've known about this. I guess they increased, he said, the watts or the power output of the tower. So I guess my car isn't crazy and I'm not crazy at this point, but I still haven't figured out how to my car not to react to it. And they're putting more towers up around here in Fairfield, so it's becoming more prominent. So I don't know if anybody's got any ideas. I read something about these Mylar, they use in emergencies, these Mylar capes or whatever they are. I forget what they call them, but supposedly those can shield against about 90% of EMF radiation. I might have to drape my whole car and also see if it works. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm still driving the Avante. I like it. It's got great mileage and get a lot of people looking. I'm actually waiting for my Aptera at this point. So
Great. Russ Wigglesworth.
Hi, I'm Russ Wigglesworth from Petaluma. I drive a 2015 Kia Soul, and I guess that. Oh, I also am waiting for my Aptera. We have about a year to go, and that's about it.
Great. John Parmalee.
Yeah, John Palmerly, and I drive an 85 Toyota pickup that is converted. It's been through a couple of versions since 2011 when Ellen and I converted it to a DC motor. Now it has a Leaf motor and a shift with a button on the gear shift that's really handy instead of using a clutch. Doesn't have a clutch, and it's just really smooth. I'm just really pleased with it.
Caleb.
Morning. I'm Caleb Leonard. I'm from Aliso Viejo now. I moved. We bought a condo, so we relocated. I drive a 2023 Volkswagen ID4, the Pro S all-wheel drive. So that's new for us. I had been driving a 2015 BMW i3, but the range limitations were not meeting our needs any longer. So we moved to something that has about 200 miles more range than what my i3 had.
Did your temporary office move with you?
I haven't built it yet, so I'm actually in my bedroom right now. But I will be rebuilding my
Temporary
less than
office.
temporary office.
You won't fit in the space underneath the stairwell, huh?
No, not comfortably. Although Katie's office is currently in a closet under the stairs, so yeah, we're making it work.
Great. Cecilia?
Hi, I'm Cecilia Sullivan. I'm up in Mendocino County, and I currently drive a 2018 Model 3.
Ellen Setchko Parmalee?
Hi everyone, I'm Ellen. I drive a 2017 Chevy Bolt that I bought used in 2019. And my dad, John, and I recently, it's a short trip, but we went up to the very peak of Mount Tam, drove it up there and had a beautiful hike. I highly recommend to anyone up to that, up to the visitor center, and then you take a hike up to the top. Anyway, it was a fun, short little EV trip we took recently.
Do you still have to get a reservation to go up there?
No,
Okay.
you just pay a $7 day pass once you get up there. But yeah, we didn't have any need for reservation, so it was pretty fun.
That's a great day trip. Thanks. Jerry?
Oh, I am.
Oh, wait,
next.
you're online.
I'm
Okay.
online.
You're online.
I'm online.
And you're
Yeah.
here.
And with this way, I can see everybody whenever I feel like
All
seeing
right.
everybody. So I'll look at the camera this time instead of looking over here at all of you. I'm Jerry Glazer, which it says up there, and I drive a 2018 Leaf. Looking forward to getting another electric so that we get rid of the Prius, but still waiting for the prices to come back to rational. And there's one slide later on. I'll tell you about my trip.
Okay, great. Zeno?
Yeah, Xander Spanning in Sebastopol. I'm still driving my old Hybrid from, I don't know, I'm not even sure when it is, quite old, and a Honda Insight, and I live in Sebastopol.
Probably 2002.
I think you should say the early part of this century.
You might want to
That
check
sounds
if it's
cool.
still in the driveway. Yeah.
Lawrence? I'm sorry, Lawrence with a W?
You're on mute. You're on mute.
You're
Lawrence.
on mute.
Took me a while to figure out what Lawrence with the W meant me. You. I don't have a W in my last name. Oh, right. I'm down here in Palo Alto. I, on long trips, often drive my girlfriend's 2019 Bolt. And I'm trying to get my electric boost recumbent bicycle up and running again. The battery is cacted. It's Bionics. That means anything to you? Well, they went out of business. And getting parts is not easy. Anyways, I've got a lead through the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition on some Bionics gear. So we'll see how it goes. I'm a big advocate of vehicle-to-grid bidirectional charging for getting fossil fuels off the grid. And it was rather humorous. A week ago, I was with the Golden Gate EVA, and we had a big discussion on the topic. And I sent them, I don't know, maybe 50 links kind of categorized. If anyone here is interested, I'll send it to this group as well.
Yeah, will you send it to me? Because I'd be interested. By the way, the CEO of Sonoma Clean Power, where we're meeting, is an extremely large advocate of V2G, and he says it's necessary.
It'd be interesting to put something together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How many of you have actually applied to participate in the program, the pilot?
oh, I have not.
Nobody? I have. That's it? Wow.
Get more people to apply.
Okay.
Is it a Sonoma Clean Power program?
No, it's a PG&E pilot. I haven't gotten approved yet, but it's part of the, through a program with the DOE.
Do you want to put the link in the chat?
I have to go find the link. It was quite a while ago that I applied.
I think
I
there's some.
forget what they require. Is that CHAdeMO or CCS?
They just require that you have a vehicle that will do vehicle to grid, and you can find a station that will do vehicle to grid. The Leaf will do vehicle to grid. The Mustang, I think, does vehicle to grid. The Kias, the Ioniqs, also.
So you need to kind of commit to getting one of those.
Yeah, you have to be able to do it in order to be in the pilot. They won't give you a car.
Who's providing the charge? I mean, I guess what I'm wondering is that CCS, I think Volvo is the only car, and it's only implied where the SAE CCS protocol works for them.
Yeah.
But most every other car, except for the Leaf, but Leaf is nearly proprietary because they're the only ones with CHAdeMO. But the rest of the CCS cars all have a manufacturer-specific bi-directional charging protocols. So they aren't like the F-150 Lightning pickup truck only does DC bi-directional charging with their equipment. It won't work, as I understand, with the SAE CCS standard. And there should be 4 chargers this year that work with the SAE CCS standard.
But let's hold off on that so that we can get through the intros, and in a later meeting, we ought to put something together on D2G so we get some more information. That was
Okay, well, I'll send my links, and anybody who wants to can dig through them and collect material for a presentation.
Okay.
Thanks. Lawrence with a U.
Hi, I'm in San Rafael and bought my first Leaf back in 2011. Kept it for a while, gave it to my daughter. She gave it to her grandson. I now have a 2019 Leaf Plus, which I'm very happy with. I use solar charging and solar backup. I've been a big advocate of solar since 2004, and happy with my Leaf.
Is this the first time you've joined our meeting?
This is the first time I've sat in on a meeting, yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome. I hope you can keep attending, and maybe if you want to drive your Leaf to Santa Rosa sometime, I'll meet you. Great. Mike?
I'm Mike Newell. I also have a 2011 Leaf, and limping along with it. I did some work to look into battery replacements in the last couple months, but still just going to keep driving it, and that's it.
What's the current range?
I think it's less than 20 miles.
Less than what?
20 miles.
But he's plugged in right now for free. Ken?
Hi, Ken Coker. I have a 2016 Model X Tesla, and about a year and a half ago, I bought an Arcimoto.
Hi, I'm Brad. I live in Santa Rosa. I got here on these 2 model 1984 feet today, but I also have a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid that's hopefully still parked outside my house. David, I did want to mention something about the EMFs. I always use a homemade tinfoil beanie. I don't know if that'll work with your car, but I just wanted to suggest it. I was surprised nobody made that joke earlier, so I had to hold on to it.
Yep. That's not a joke. We have somebody in Sebastopol that attends every planning commission meeting, and she wears her tinfoil in the meeting.
Okay. I hope it helps.
All right, David Harris, you want to take 1 minute? We're doing very short intros.
Sure. Okay, David Harris, I got here in my Bolt, but the saga right now is what to do about our at least 2020 Leaf. Now that the dealers have had such good deals, this is the 4th Leaf we've had. And the first one had a payment of $391, and then the 193, 165. The last one had an $88. This one, an $88 lease.
Wow.
Partly because I paid $2,000 down. I didn't want to have a big monthly payment.
Sorry, I paid more than that. I paid more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, but now what are they doing? you know, we got a new tax credit. Oh, we're not passing that on. We're adding on $5,000 to the MSRP.
Okay, yeah.
And, okay, so yeah, we can buy the used one for basically 20,000. Sticker on the new one is 28 minus 7,500 is about the same price. Well, you do have to pay the tax on that 7,500 difference. But still trying to resolve that little issue of what to do, whether to buy or whether this added to MSRP is going to go away in the next few months or what's going to happen.
I think we have some more info about how things are shaping up over time, but we'll see. All right, I'm going to move us right along because we've got lots going on. Would you be proud? So real quick, the intro to the NBEAA, we're located at nbeeaa.org. You can always get to our Zoom link that way. We post our meetings there, etc. We're part of the Electric Vehicle Association. We're a chapter, and we operate on Google Groups mostly for communications. So we have a group site, and I have a little more info on that. The previous meetings are on YouTube and also at our NBEAA site. And the PDF of our meetings has active links. So when we talk about all the things, all the information that we collect and all those great links, a great way to just go through and find stuff is to access the PDF. Also, if you join our NBEA club, you'll get 2 or 3 or 4 emails a month and have updates on when to show up for the second Saturday of the month. And if you have some more detailed conversation that you'd like to take offline, NBEAA Discuss is a great group to join. And you do need to actively join that group again. There's no approval or anything. You just need to kind of get into it.
And Brad, did you check, do you belong to club?
No, it requires a Google group, remember?
You won't use a Google group?
I don't have a Google account.
You don't need a Google account.
But you
Well,
do need
I'll
to
explain
join.
to you after, yeah.
No, you do.
Oh, you're right, you do, but it doesn't have to be,
It doesn't have to be your
it
email
doesn't have to be
address,
Google, it can be whatever name you make up.
Maybe we can take this.
Yeah, we'll take it offline.
All right, but otherwise you'll just have to trust that we're always here. Also, we've got a Google group for officers, et cetera. And so, you know, we've been having some really interesting, active conversation among officers, including with the Redwood Credit Union and so forth. So that's a nice lively group if you want to become part of leadership.
But you have to take a leadership position in order
You
to
have to
get
take
in
a
the group.
leadership position. It's a very coveted thing to get into that Google group. There's only 4 or 5 people.
4.
Just the 4.
And there will
Okay.
always only be 4.
It'll just be 4. Anytime you want something to be included in the presentation, we're a little backlogged right now, but we keep grabbing all the things in the presentation that people forward. You just forward it to the NBEAA team and we'll mock it up into a slide, or you can create a slide for us, which we greatly appreciate. Cecilia's done some work on the Facebook group, and I wanted to continue to just kind of promote this. If you happen to be on Facebook, if you want to like kind of stay involved here and do a little bit of social media posting, it would be super. And I don't know, Cecilia, if you want to take a second to talk about how that's going, or.
I forgot to promote the meeting in there, so it's been a little quiet since we had our last meeting.
Yeah.
So join and have a discussion.
If anybody wants to kind of separately just make sure you like this group, have something to say on it, that sort of thing, it'd be great just to see if it grows.
It also doesn't require a Google account, but you do need a Facebook account.
Yeah. All right. So we've rolled all the way over to the subject of new officers. So if it hasn't been clear so far, we do have a process where we ask people to start out as a vice president for a year and then continue on a path to president and then president emeritus. So that it is kind of a 3-year cycle to start in as vice president and move through in those phases. And the first person to achieve that goal will be Jerry. He will have possibly started as vice president, possibly skipped vice president.
No, you started as vice president. I was
I
the
did.
first president to take place. Alan Soleil kept asking, will somebody else please be president?
Right.
And he did that for about 4 years. And he said, that's not working, so he left the area.
Yep.
He moved away. So I volunteered, but I only volunteered if somebody would volunteer to be vice president and become president the next year. And so you
Which
did
I
that.
did. Yeah, and so I've done 2 years of the 3-year cycle, and I'm about to start as president emeritus, which I'm really excited about. I've never been a president emeritus of anything. And I intend to continue to be involved. I think what works really well is like Cecilia and Jerry and I made a great team so far. And we're kind of like, dividing and do what we like and getting things kind of together. And it's been a good way to share information and stretch it out to people like Lawrence, both Lawrences who are out of county. What we do need for this year would be a new vice president who's willing to become president in a year from now. And we also could use a new treasurer who would maybe use that opportunity to be both treasurer and just do a few things they like and take the burden off of others.
Bruce doesn't want to be treasurer any longer, or?
I haven't heard from Bruce about being
Okay.
treasurer, but I thought possibly that would be a really interesting role for someone. It's like, it's a 1-year role that does not have a future year requirement. But what would be great, because the treasurer really has nothing to do other than think about the money we have.
Yeah.
They could create a role for themselves and they could do a couple things and be part of that Google group that gets all of the NBEAA officer type things. So
We can make them secretary treasurer. Then
yeah, I don't know
that's
if
a common,
I don't know if the parent organization recognizes secretary treasurer,
don't
but
have
we
to.
could do it informally.
Actually, the
Yeah.
parent organization, because I looked into this when I became president, turned out that in the parent organization, it basically says, didn't say what the officers have to be, but you have to have 2 officers in order to continue to be part of the EVA.
Yeah. Ellen has asked to describe the vice president role, and so I'd like to describe the vice president role and also the president role just a little bit as to what it's been traditionally. It's not a lot of work. But in a very busy month for myself, I might put 4 hours in the month. And ideally, I would like to put maybe 6 to 8 hours in the month and make a better presentation and do some outreach or, follow up and see if we can get speakers, that sort of thing. So in terms of what is the vice president's role, the vice president's role is pretty much anything that could be helpful in building out the presentation for the week, and anything that could be helpful in backing up anyone who needs to take a month off. So if you're comfortable leading one of these meetings, that's a way to help. If you're comfortable choosing to reach out to media or choosing to participate in getting us signed up for an event and organized around showing up for an event or something like that, it's very fluid. It's very easy. Would you add anything?
Yeah, I would add. I mean, the last phrase, Ellen, is correct. It's very fluid. When Alan was president, he did everything. And in fact, I found out he's sitting on committees in the county and whatever else on behalf of the NBEAA. So we broke all the work up so that Alan wouldn't have a load 2 years in advance before Alan stopped being president. And at that point, I'll be quite honest, I picked up almost all of the load even though I wasn't president. So when Alan said we have to have a president, volunteering to be president wasn't difficult, but I didn't want to do it for 5 years like Alan did. The roles are developing. The major role of the vice president is, as Sonia said, back up the president when we need somebody else to take a place, and you have authority to do that. And the commitment to be president the next year. That's the major part of the role. We're still developing, and I hope that I still participate in putting the presentation together. And I'm hoping we get more and more people put that together, because that's actually the larger part of what you take on, is putting the presentation together so we have a good meeting. Sonia picked up a lot of load, and Cecilia and others have at times jumped in and put pieces together. Cecilia took on a second role, which we wouldn't expect the vice president to do, which is she's been brilliant on getting our web presence to be reasonable. And next we need to get the network stuff reasonable as well, once that works out. And she's made it easier for the president and vice president to do things, because there was post-processing that I would do that took 4 hours after a meeting. And I spent more than the time that Sonia did, because we were trying to figure out how do we do this. I don't know how the hell Alan did it. The one last thing, and I'd love to keep this role. Turns out that Zeno identified that we have a seat on the Sonoma County Transit Authority. Transportation Authority Citizens Advisory Committee. And Sonia asked if I would sit on that. I'm finding that most of the people who are sitting on that for various organizations have been there for 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
And Alan was there for whatever period of time, and they were going to drop us in our input. I'm getting a lot of good information about transportation in our area and electrification that's occurring and things like that. So I'd like to keep that seat, even though I took it just because you assigned it to me. But if somebody else wants to take it over, and that was the reason that officers was created. So that if somebody's trying to find us, they kept writing to Alan. Well, he didn't respond. And so officers was created so they get a group of us who are the current officers, and if something dropped or somebody wants to make an offer to us, they can write to officers and somebody will respond. Anyway, that's the role of vice president. The major part, you'd be president next year.
Yeah, it's a rolling position. I would say the nuts and bolts are that the majority of the work is in researching and creating a presentation and thinking a little bit about, how to move people along around any goals that you might choose. So I chose 2 or 3 modest goals for the year. And one was getting us back to meeting in person. And another one was, getting us involved in more events, which, we're not doing any events in my tenure, but we've lined up a couple of events that we could attend this spring. And that was just kind of subject to COVID. So, I feel like also things could morph and change where it could be more of a social or circular type meeting and less of a presentation, Zoom oriented meeting going forward. But what it's been in the last couple of years has been very research some things, create a few slides in a slide deck, follow some of the admin that Jerry established that's helped us really a lot, just tossing documents into group folders where they belong, where everyone can get to them, and creating the slides and using the Google Suite products.
Well, I want to do just a little bit of selling, a small bit of selling. I've gotten a lot of mileage as a result of the title president of NBEAA. And I also have mileage, to be honest, personally, as past president of NBEAA. I got a role with the MTC as a result of it. I've got noticed in other places as a result of it. So there are rewards of taking on the responsibility. And you get to participate in a lot of interesting things in the community.
Yeah, I think that this particular organization or chapter is unique in having a little less of a political orientation, a little more of an educational advocacy orientation. and that opens some doors in a different way. So I just think it has a certain purpose. So without further ado, does anyone want to volunteer for vice president? Knowing that they would be president the following year?
Who's getting ready to retire?
Retired.
Because if we don't have any volunteers for vice president, I do have some concerns that we will not have any, I don't know, like what you would call fresh blood running our leadership here. You know, we do have some interim ideas about what to do, but if no one wants to volunteer for vice president, that means Jerry can't just become treasurer.
I don't want to be treasurer.
And
Mike spends all the money. I think he should be treasurer.
there you go.
Well, all the money.
Mike spends
It's not
his
like
own
he's
money.
going through it like water.
The problem is that Mike spends his own money and doesn't
Well, he should
submit
get it back.
receipts
Yeah.
for donuts.
Keep on talking.
So, yeah, I think our goal was that we would finalize and vote in March. And if we don't have anyone who wants to be vice president, would people like to have closure this month or wait till next month and see if we?
Are you, oh, you're not even here next month.
I've changed my plans.
Oh, okay,
I'll be
good.
okay. I'll
Okay.
be okay.
Okay, so you'll run the meeting next month.
Sure. Yeah. So,
I think it'd be good to wait. And just
good to
let,
wait a month?
let
Let
people
everybody
think about
think
it.
about it?
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Does that mean you'll think about it, John?
Ellen?
Yeah.
You'll think about it?
John's already thought about it. Just like I've already thought about it.
Well, I think this is making me realize that we don't have a recorded history. 'Cause I mean, we've had Nick Carter, Chris Jones,
Oh, yeah.
and then
Bruce was?
well, yeah, and whether Alan was before Bruce or after Bruce, I can't remember.
Bruce did a year in the middle.
Yeah,
In
yeah, that was-
between.
right. You know, but and then Alan left, right?
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
So, and that is the situation. You're the only past president that's still physically around, right? And Nick's down on the peninsula.
Bruce joins on occasion. Zeno, you had something to say?
Yeah, it occurs to me that there are actually other roles in the organization that we don't talk about. And especially since Cecilia is stepping up to create the presentation and be a president, she's doing already a lot for the website and now social media. So I wonder, I mean, I could imagine that I would be doing something in social media. So that's something maybe to keep in mind for if we return to this topic next session.
Well, we actually do have another group, which is the NBEAA, I think it's called Web Group. And that was those of us who had volunteered to work on it. It turns out that one of us was much better and technically advanced and had a better sense of how to do things. And so she took over. But that work was intended to be divided up as well. So there's no question about it. And by the way, the president is not responsible for creating the presentation. They're just responsible to make sure the presentation was created.
Yeah, I think,
If they're good at twisting arms.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm hearing from Jerry, you're saying you're not going anywhere and that you want to be involved in.
Yeah, of course.
presentations
I think
going
each one of us has a responsibility.
I'm not going anywhere
Yeah.
and I wouldn't mind being involved in presentations going forward. So we will coordinate with you, Cecilia, and figure out, who wants to do what. part of what Zeno was saying is that some of the things that happen are a little more hidden and some of them are a little bit more exposed. I mean, we do have a web group, but we haven't really come up with the concept of the social media coordinator, which would be great, Zeno, if you wanted to carve out some of that. And then there's also just kind of like the compiling of the deck versus the delivering of the meeting here. And so, you know, we have maybe an online presence and an in-person presence. And so I think we're gonna be fine working that out. I think of some of the, like, who's responsible for taking leads sometimes is a little bit more of the president's job.
Yeah.
And that can be fun. You know, if there's incoming. So we can table it for a month.
Yeah.
I think we're all comfortable. We feel like we have the firepower, which is great. But, you know, we're just looking for people who have some fresh interest in joining the group, the leadership group.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything to add, Cecilia? Or should we move on?
Nope, I think it'd be good to move on and get our news done.
I had one question. A couple mentions of the term for these officers. Once it was mentioned it was 1 year, and then I thought you said it was 2 years, and so I just want to make that real clear, which it is.
It's one, John.
Okay.
Each position.
Yeah.
The three positions rotate forward, so you're 1 year per position.
Got it.
Okay, so on events, real quick, if anyone wants to volunteer to lead coordination of any of the future events, let us know. There's March 11, North Bay Science Discovery Day. We've talked about this before. We're being kindly invited, et cetera, but it is kind of more of an educational, family-oriented event. Earth Day, City of Santa Rosa, we've done that in the past, and I think everyone kind of likes doing that one. It's April 22, and vendor applications are due like next week or this week.
And by the way, that one is tremendous amount of fun. There were a lot of people to talk to the last time that we did it.
Mhm.
And I really enjoyed it. I'm going to be in New York that day, but.
Okay,
And April 22nd is also a Saturday.
April 22nd is also a Saturday, but not the second Saturday. So it's
The third
not
Saturday.
going to overlap with one of our
Yeah.
meetings, but yeah. I think Saturday, March 11 is our next meeting day. So the Science Discovery Day is actually a conflict.
So is there a payment required to be a vendor?
I don't know. Mike, you arranged it the last time, right?
Not Earth Day, no.
No, I don't remember who did it then.
Yeah, I think it's like a nonprofit check
Yeah.
mark of some sort. So there's that one. And then the Apple Blossom Parade is something that we've done in the further distant past. I think we made a windmill, we did all sorts of crazy things. And also I wanted to mention that Alan used to always offer to drive dignitaries because he had the Roadster
Yeah,
and they could
yeah.
hang out the top of the Roadster really easily. And that was something they all liked a lot. I don't know if anyone has a Roadster locally.
Ford Lightning.
Or another type of convertible or Ford Lightning. But if you did, you could, as an individual, you know, insert yourself into parades pretty easily. Zeno, did you have a question about the events or was it left over? I wasn't clear. Okay, good. So I'm going to table this and we'll talk directly after the meeting. If no one else volunteers, I think I'll pick up the application for Earth Day, but I'd love to hear that a couple people would be around to like do it. That's what I mean.
And we need more material too from the EVA, and we had handouts and stuff, and quite frankly, I think it was you, Cecilia, that brought handouts, and it wasn't from the EVA, and they were better than anything we had at the time. So.
Yeah, maybe we can co-opt some things, but also at least we have our online presence. And in the past, we said to ourselves, if we didn't have a good website to direct people to, we would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But now you can pretty much hand people a card with
Yeah.
our link. although you could do better, I'm sure, yeah.
You set up a laptop connected to the,
Yeah,
there,
yeah, we could do that. So another thing, just for those of you with custom EVs, David Heacock and John Pomerly, I guess, and whoever else, here's a link to the PG&E custom EV show that they've chosen to like put some energy into. They're calling it their inaugural, and they, I think, have some motorcycle enthusiasts involved because they're really emphasizing motorcycles. And you can attend as a spectator as well in Cupertino. So that would be an interesting place to take your issues too, I would imagine. So this is more informative. I didn't think that we'd be getting involved as a group.
Is Thunderstruck still doing anything with motorcycles? John? No?
Not really, no. I mean, we help people build kits, that's it. We don't do it.
Got it. Great, so I'm gonna move into news. We've got maybe 20, 30 minutes, 25 minutes to do news. So
oh, that was first, huh?
Jerry, yeah, take it away.
So I usually fly from Santa Rosa to San Luis Obispo to spend time with my friends in Morro Bay. But this time I said, well, let me drive the Leap. And 2 years ago, I went to try that, and there's nothing between Salinas and San Luis Obispo, and that's kind of a long stretch to trust the Leap. But now there's a bunch more stuff along the way. So I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. I left here fully charged from my garage and drove south of San Jose to Bernal exit and got off, charged up. It was about a mile off the road, which is a pain in the ass to go a mile off the road highway to go get gas, basically.
Yeah.
Had my Starbucks and got about 48 kilowatts loading up the car. And so I said, great, I can make it to King City. So I drove down to King City. It turns out there were 2 stations shown in King City. One was a charge point, the other one was EV Go, but then a third one kept showing up. Electrify America was there. And then I go on the web again, and then it would be gone. And it would be in PlugShare, and then it was gone from PlugShare. And it was on Electrify America, and then it was gone within days. So I ended up going to the charge point station, where I have developed a very strong prejudice against touchscreens outside, because it's cracked, and I touch it to tell it to stop because the 50 kilowatt charge station is charging my car at 23 kilowatts. I'm going, I'm going to find a different station. So I tried to stop it, and it wouldn't stop. So I finally have to call the center, and they reboot the system so I can leave. And I drive to the EV Go, and I plug into that, which has a 50 kilowatt. It charged at 23 kilowatts as well. I let it charge, and I'm saying, okay, what the heck? And then I finally have enough charge to make it to Morro Bay. So I go to disconnect. Well, on the touch screen, there's no button that says stop. And I can't figure out how to stop it. So I push the button on the control to see if I can get it out. And while it's not coming out, it's locked in. So I called them, and the tech is telling me, lock your car door, unlock it, lock your car door, unlock it. We do this for about an hour and a half. And then finally we're talking to a hardware tech. And the hardware tech, I can't understand because I'm not sure what language she's speaking, and the connection is not good enough. And so I call Nissan, I say, is there a way to disconnect it from the car side? And that's where I learned about the button. I don't have the button. I don't have the button, turns out. So Caleb and I have worked on EVs. What's the next thing you do? I reboot the system. I'm looking for a wrench in the car so I can reboot the system. I'm going to disconnect the 12-volt battery and reboot the car. I finally found a pair of pliers, a little set, and got it loose, rebooted. That didn't do it. So I'm now talking to the tech and saying, we'll have somebody there in 4 hours. Meantime, a guy in a Rivian drives up. He's looking at me, staring at me. He's having a problem too, but he gets his charging going. He watches what's going on. I said, the plug's stuck in here and I can't get it out. Did you try hitting it with a hammer?
This is on the moon. You're on the moon now.
I go, well, no, I haven't. I guess it's worth it. I try. He says, I've got one. So he goes to his truck, he gets the hammer, tap, 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 tap. The button pops out. The system now is turned off on the station. I push the button in, I'm driving. Now I'm talking to the tech as I'm driving towards Morro Bay and saying, it's working. Well, do we need to send somebody out? I said, I think you better have somebody come out and check the connector to find out what's wrong with the button on it. And by the way, why is there no stop button? He said, well, that's one of the news stations. So when you want the stop button, you have to tell it what kind of a connector you're connected with, and then the stop button will show up. And I'm going, where's the instruction to tell you to do that? By the way, the other part that I had was when I was at Charge Point Station, I wanted to call them to reboot the system. Do you know that the phone number for rebooting the system and calling for help is on the screen that wasn't working? They don't have it printed on the side of the machine.
That's why I carry a Sharpie. Any station that doesn't have the number, I
You're
write
right,
it on.
exactly. Anyway, I made it to Morro Bay, plenty of charge. It only took 9.5 hours from Santa Rosa. It takes me 2 hours to fly, but it took 9.5 hours to drive. I drove back. I'm not stopping in King City this time. I go to Soledad because there's Electrify America. And in the same parking lot, there's a company I've never heard of before. Anybody else know EV Charge?
Yeah, if you go to Oregon, you'll see them.
I ended up doing the EV Charge in Starbucks. EV Charge, I was gonna use my credit card. The credit card reader didn't work, so I used their app. Their app, sorry, you're gonna bleep this out, is amazing. I'm holding up the phone to put in things on it, and the phone sees the QR code on the station, gets to the web page and fills everything in. It says you need a credit card, so I'm holding the credit card up so I can type the numbers. The phone sees it and the app sees it, fills in all the credit card information, and I'm charging. Next thing, my screen on my phone has it's charging. I go into Starbucks, I start having my coffee, I bring out the iPad, I get an email saying charging, and I click on the link and a screen shows up, and this is what's happening with the car and everything. It was amazing. So finished there, that loaded up as fast as my car will load up, and I drove onward towards San Jose. It's all sitting right here, and I decided I'm going past San Jose, I'm going to Union City, I'm going to the Walmart where the EVgo has got, Electrify America has a Chatham station. I get there, every seat is taken, so I'm just going to use level 2. I couldn't get the Electrify America app to take my credit card, no matter what I did. I tried 5 credit cards and I couldn't figure out the app. Then I look at the stations, and it turns out even though PlugShare says there's a Chatham there, there's 4 CCS plugs there, and there's no. So then I drive to another one, which is an EVgo in town, 50 kilowatt. That one delivers 17 kilowatt. So I spent a long time reading a book that Zeno has me reading. So I was able to nap. And then I wake up and I see my car's not charging anymore, and there's a Tesla parked next to me. And that guy's on the phone talking to a tech. I said, what's going on? He says, it's not working. And I'm looking and the station's turned off. And I'm going, the station's off. Why is the station on? I hear the tech say, well, we're rebooting it because he's having a problem. His problem was I was charging and he wanted to charge.
Well, they're supposed to make them work that way.
No, some of them do and some of them don't. So you need to know which station takes 2 plugs and which station will only take
And
1.
they don't put that on.
They don't put that on the station. Anyway, I got home late that night. So that was my trip. Next slide.
Jerry,
Lawrence has his hand up.
For future
Can I
trips.
comment on your charging speeds?
On Civic Hybrid, it's much more reliable than the stations.
No, that was a hybrid.
Lawrence?
So you said you were expecting higher charging speeds.
Yeah.
But what I've been told over and over with Leafs is the first time on a day that you fast charge, you do okay. And then every time after that, it goes very slowly because the Leaf battery doesn't have active temperature control. And because of that, it slows down the fast charging so it won't cook the battery. And
So I read that, I saw that too, Lawrence, and just from a technical point of view, it didn't make it for me because basically what I had done was I had driven from Morro Bay to Soledad, 100 miles. So I'm using the battery, so it should have been hot by that point, just because I'm using the bloody thing. And then I plugged it in. That one gave me 50 kilowatts. The next one, where I drove just 80 miles from there, that was only giving me 17. So
Right. I don't think it's based on necessarily just on the battery temperature. What I've been told is like even in like sub-freezing temperatures, you know, even if it's just somehow it looks back and says, oh, you've already had your fast charge for today, I'm going to throttle you back. I mean, I don't know what the algorithm is, but I've just heard this over and over and over again from different Leaf drivers that it doesn't even make sense given the conditions as far as protecting the battery, but it seems to be just some kind of protection that's built in whether or not the battery is hot.
Okay, I'll look into that. I would have thought, well, I hadn't tried that actually. I should be able to reboot the vehicle and get past that.
That could be an override.
It might look at the battery and the calendar. Who knows?
Yeah. I'll look into that.
A lot of Leaf drivers.
Yeah. Too bad Woody's not here. No gas. Woody is here. Are you here, Woody?
Yes, I am.
This came off of your website, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, I remember this.
You do or you don't? Okay.
I do. Yeah, I remember.
Speak to it then. You get some accolades.
What's that?
Why don't you speak to the slide?
Well, let's see. Just been a while since it's just. I think what this was showing is just even when you look at. It's basically just showing. We were trying to say that there is not a reason to add additional gas stations defined by retail, you know, the big, gaudy, colorful sign, Shell, Chevron, Arco, because a lot of this stuff's gotten into this detail. Well, what is a gas station? Anyway, gas stations as we know them, sales have been flat for, you know, over 10 years, really. And so there's not this sort of increase in demand that would require additional gasoline, diesel fueling infrastructure. So that's simply what this was all about.
Yeah, well, and actually, the point down at the bottom was that Woody and others have been in the midst of no more gas stations. And at this point, Petaluma, Sebastopol, Roanoke Park, Cotati, then Santa Rosa, and now the county of Sonoma no longer allow new gas stations to be built.
And Windsor.
And Windsor. Okay, I didn't have that one.
So wait, hold on. Yeah, I think you got the cities right. There's 6 of them. The county, we are the planning commission just voted unanimously to forward to the Board of Supes the ordinance resolution and set of zoning amendments. It is not in the bag yet. The Board of Supervisors still needs to vote on it.
Okay, thanks, Woody.
Oh, actually, Woody, do you know what the drop was in Santa Rosa's gasoline consumption? Because it was by far the most significant thing on the last slide from 20, I think 13 to 14.
13 or 14, right.
I don't know what that would be, but.
Before
you know, I don't have any idea what that is. I did not look into that. So that's a future research project for someone.
I'm just in this report. It really has been interesting. I didn't even know that Sonoma County Transportation Authority, whatever, existed and what it actually does. And sitting on this group, we're responsible for how to spend the Measure M funds and then coming up Go Sonoma funds, which account for about $30 million today. It started at about $19 million a year. Now it's about $33 million a year worth of sales tax funds that we have in the county for transportation projects. The major spend for Measure M over the last 20 years is the widening of Highway 101. The major spends, hopefully, for Go Sonoma will be in transportation. And right here, I just highlighted the places that I thought were really interesting for us from the report of grants that are awarded. And these are all for electrifying the transit fleets. And so there's some major funds going in. These are all in millions or thousands rather. So we're looking at changing very quickly in the next 2 years, a large portion of the bus fleets here. So incentivize all of us to start using public transit. We don't have to use our EVs. I forgot. It's so long ago that I did the slide that I can't remember.
Yeah, I kind of did some reading on this as well.
Interesting.
So I think this is about money, pre-IRA money,
Yeah.
right? That was related to the CEC that they're rolling out right now. So $2.9 billion to accelerate 2025 charging infrastructure goals, translating into 170,000 stations. We're seeing, like, I think the big thing here is that we're seeing a lot of money that has been kind of allocated that is still getting kind of pushed out to vendors and put into kind of shovel-ready projects, I guess you could say.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, and so we should be seeing some real infrastructure changes. I mentioned that I was at Harris Ranch recently, and there are like over 100 Tesla stations in an annex that were about to be turned on. So someone just mentioned Apteros can plug in there. Yeah.
Well, you talk about Tesla. I mean, I'm looking at this number, 170,000 stations.
Yeah.
Tesla is getting close to 5,000 in the US. But for them, a station could have 100 plugs in it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they must be talking about plugs here, not stations.
Possibly.
But still, you know, the average supercharger site, let's say it's 10. Well, that means there's only 50,000 Tesla plugs.
Yep.
You're bringing up a point that has been driving me nuts, is that we don't have language yet to differentiate the plug from the unit, from the place where there's units. And it would be nice. I mean, one of the things I wrote up in the discuss was, geez, why can't we have service stations where we drive off the highway and there's an attendant, and he's gonna sell me a Coke and I can plug in, and why do I have to go to a shopping center all the time? And then we talk about stations again.
But
This is a lot of fun.
bathrooms.
They need bathrooms, exactly, and they don't have bathrooms where we charge them.
And everything needs to be ADA.
Yeah, you can't wash your windshield or put air in your tire.
Yeah.
We don't have tires in our EVs.
Oh, so this is kind of related to the county slide around gas being flat. You pulled this one, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I did. Basically, people always talked about peak oil, but now they're no longer talking about peak oil. They're really talking about peak consumption. And they believe that 2022, we finally have reached peak consumption on basically oil for transportation.
In the US.
In the US. Probably Europe is already past us at this point, with their gas prices being $9 a gallon. So, so what's going to happen is the prices will stay up because all the oil companies have plans now to start cutting back on their production. And we're starting to see this. And the other thing was this. It was kind of funny. In the 1990s, 1980s, the fuel economy on cars was improving and improving and improving. And someplace along the way, we turned a corner and started getting worse and worse mileage on our cars.
And that's the flat line there above 2,000.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So now we're going again and starting to get more economical cars again.
Yeah. And Biden in the State of the Union address said, we're going to need gas for at least another 10 years. And he got like a lot of derisive laughter on that one. But I think that he probably meant, you know, we need to continue to increase infrastructure for producing gas, but not for long.
Not for long, yeah.
Yeah.
It's happening so much faster. Probably 2 years ago, in one of the slides I put together, it was Sandy Monroe said that by 2027, that in the US, 50% of new car sales would be EVs, and everybody laughed at that. But at the rate we're going, he probably was wrong, or we're probably gonna break 50% before then. If we can make it fast enough.
I just saw in California, it was 17%.
California, 17%, the Bay Area is 27% of new car sales is electric vehicles.
I thought I saw California at 19% now, but
When, that was
could be
months
now.
ago. that
Right. I was just
looked
gonna, this is Woody, I was gonna chime in. The most recent is 19%. Sonia's right.
it feels significant. All right, so Frito-Lay gets their first Tesla satellite.
Yeah, I put the slide together, but I can't remember who sent it in. Well, why don't you speak to it?
Well, I don't know what else to say. I mean, the question and people I send it to, I said is, let me know if you see one in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen one yet, right?
So Frito-Lay, I don't know, this is not a new thing for Frito-Lay. Probably 15 years ago, I tried to invest in Frito-Lay and found out that I couldn't, because it's a Pepsi company. So I bought Pepsi stock because Frito-Lay was doing all kinds of environmentally sound things. And this is part of their push now. Now they're getting the semis to be electric.
I think some of those Smith trucks that Thunderstruck has were Frito-Lay. And
they were.
And it raises the interesting point that Pepsi is not, but I think Pepsi is close behind them.
Yeah, the article that you sent out did say Pepsi was pushing it as well. But Frito-Lay has been somewhat independent in a lot of this, but
And, you know, we've been having a conversation about asthma rates. And the last point here is that, you know, these Frito-Lay trucks are based in Modesto. And there's so much particulate matter there.
they're right down there, last line.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we can find some, you know, good public health data.
Well, I heard data on the radio on NPR this week that of the locations that had 30% EVs or something like that, the asthma visits.
Yeah, that's what we were discussing on this.
There is data being put out.
Yeah, there's one good study out of USC.
I don't know, I saw this one or somebody else sent this one in. I thought it was interesting. This is a model. I mean, it's not done yet, but it will be delivered. And this is now moving towards the largest ferry. A number that I was given at one point was the ferries that we use here for public transit in the Bay Area, out of Larkspur, for instance, per passenger gets 6 miles per gallon per passenger. So pretty inefficient. So now we're talking about EVs. We had a presentation probably 5 years ago from a fellow who was working on wind and electric and working with Thunderstruck on ferries. So this one was really interesting, mostly for me, because I got too many zeros there. It's supposed to be 2,100 passengers and their vehicles go on this ferry. And it's designed to go between Argentina and Uruguay.
Argentina and
Uruguay. So I had to look at the map. I'm doing Wordle every morning now, so I can learn about the world.
And you can't drive off the front.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's a catamaran, so there you can't
You
see.
can't drive your car off the front.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's underneath the catamaran.
No, it could be. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
This one is left over from last month as well. New York City continues to push EVs, and they're working on 925 new EVs replacing gas-powered. What surprised me was the number of EVs that they already have in their fleet. They've got 4,000 EVs in their fleet already. So they're trying to replace everything they have in the city with EVs eventually. Street sweepers and refuse trucks have always been a target because they make so much noise when they come through, and the neighborhoods all want to see them, you know, become quieter. So EV versions of them. Although I don't know of any really great EV versions yet of trash trucks. We tried to make one, and I spent time along with Caleb and some other people in the dump underneath EVs trying to get them to move.
I think Europe's got them.
All right.
This one, I just picked this slide up because this was US manufacturing sites, which are now bringing into the country manufacturing for all different kinds of things. And there's nothing in California.
Wonder why.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing in Alaska either.
Good point. There's nothing in Alaska either.
Or Hawaii.
Or Oregon or Washington or.
Yeah. The Reno area has become really popular.
Yeah.
Oh, because of Tesla.
Yeah, but I think like there's been a couple other things that have been.
Yeah, I don't know if we have it up Joy, on this one. There may be a slide here on lithium mines. I think there is.
Well, Cecilia and I are gonna show you where VinFasts and
Okay.
Polestars will be manufactured in the southeast. I don't know if that's here either.
I don't know how big of a role it plays where they decide to locate manufacturing facilities, but I'm guessing partially because I've seen so many people complain about PG&E rate increases lately. And electricity prices probably play a huge role. I mean, I remember maybe 10 years ago or whatever, when Amy's Kitchen, which is has a manufacturing plant over in South Santa Rosa, wanted to expand, they ended up going to Medford, Oregon. Part because of electricity rates, part because of water hookup costs for a new plant, part because of cheaper labor costs. I mean, but there were like a lot of factors in there. So
Yeah, I thought a lot of it was labor. I put this slide together from something that Cecilia submitted and also another one that I submitted. I kind of mashed up this idea that Oregon just passed some legislation to ban gas car sales in 2035, matching California. And I think the state of Washington is 2030. Then Wyoming proposed some legislation to do just the opposite. And then the state senator, Jim Anderson, who introduced the bill, said he actually was just kidding or something like that. But I think it's still going through the Wyoming state legislature. It's probably really popular to discuss there.
Well, people who haven't participated in putting slides together, at the beginning of the, well, someplace in the month, I start tagging them with labels so we can break down who's going to do what. I did not tag this one as legislation and policy. I put this one under jokes.
I know, I saw that. I saw that you put it under jokes, but it's, I thought you could kill 2 submissions with 1 slide, which was, it really is that Oregon's made a great, great move by stepping in with the ban of gas car sales. And hopefully the Wyoming thing is a joke.
Right, but he is pandering to the QAnon people.
Yes.
And some number of them
I
will
thought you might like to see it.
stand up and cheer, and he can hope that the rest of the legislature is more sensible than he is.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't do a slide on this. I just saw something recently. In Wyoming, not Wyoming, Montana and Wyoming both have the dirtiest electric power. It's all coal. Yeah.
But even so, an EV, people say, well, it's just coming from a coal plant, but it still is a reduction.
This last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, Zano and I hosted at Zano's house a Electrify get together, and multiple people kept asking the question about lithium and, isn't this, we had another thing in Sebastopol, and people go, yeah, they got children getting the lithium, and well, it turns out that the price on lithium, I brought this up before, has increased tenfold in the last 12 years. So many places where you couldn't get lithium economically before, now you can. The Salton Sea turns out it has enough lithium in it for about 50 million EVs. And they're talking about major plants, multiple companies, major plants going there to pump it. It's from underground. The challenge is to separate the heavy metals out of the lithium, but they all think that they can do it and do it economically. There's also, well, actually, it's going to be on the next slide. This shows the extent of what they think they can do from there. So we're going to be bringing lithium production, and it's pretty much going to be domestic for the United States because we have it here in California. Why don't you go to the next slide? You can get more details off of this one. But then the other one is the Rhyolite Ridge, lithium mine. I think this is outside of the capital. I just went blank.
Carson City.
Carson City, thank you.
It's just Thacker Pass,
Yeah.
but that, another mine.
Oh, yeah, there's another mine, okay. Oh, that's another mine proposed, yeah. So there's multiple mines, and in this case, we're not getting it out of fluids, but we're actually getting it out of ores. So there's multiple places where they now can refine the ores. And the real question here was that this one's been held up because they're trying to protect that buckwheat. And so the mining concern has to find a way to mine without impacting the buckwheat.
Taken 1,000 years to get it to grow back.
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind, I think we need to move forward to our
Keep going.
presentation.
Oh, is that right? What else we got
Yeah.
left here? How many we got left?
Let's see. We're on slide 30,
Oh, geez.
and
Wow.
we've got
Okay, go to the presentation.
another 11, but I think that it's possible that we'll go through this quickly enough that we can go back to
Okay,
news.
let's do it.
But I want to give us enough time on, so mental note, slide 30. Give us enough time here. And
Presentation. Huh?
yeah, okay, great. Cecilia, do you want to kick us off or do you want me to?
Sure, I can start us off. So it was a week ago, a couple weeks ago. Sonia and I went to Corte Madera to check out VinFast in particular, but discovered that there are a bunch of other EV showrooms there. So just in this one location, you can find VinFast, who does have an open location now. Polestar also open, and they have cars there. Tesla was there. They are moving, but it's just going to be like across the highway. And also Lucid will be coming later this year. They have they're doing construction there, and they're looking for people to work there.
Yeah. So this is, if you are familiar with Nordstrom, it's the Bay side or the east side of Corte Madera there. It's right in that same shopping center. So it was like a mecca, and you know, certainly it's all luxury EVs, but we had a really good time. Cecilia kindly asked if I would be willing to drive there on FSD beta, and we did, and that was exciting. It's the full self-driving mode, and I felt comfortable because Cecilia is like really detail oriented in how she pays attention to what it's doing.
Oh, so it was her car. She was driving her car.
It was her car.
Your are still getting fixed?
Mine's gonna go into the shop on Monday.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been driving it around, it's fine. And so we met at the park and ride in Cotati and drove from Cotati to Corte Madera, and that was kind of cool too, to see how the Tesla was navigating merge lanes and splits and things like that, like some of the more sophisticated things, and parking lots.
So you didn't
that look
video
like
the thing?
streets.
Because, you know, we had one time a program that was.
Alan did that.
Yeah.
When he got the upgrade.
It was kind of opposite of sleeping. It was like paying really close attention. But I think the things that I learned while we were down there was, you know, what does a shopping mall EV showroom look like? And what are these kind of newer companies doing to promote their cars? When ultimately they really need a service center and a place to charge all these cars, and maybe like a lot to put them in, you know. But these things were all kind of separated, you know, and I think where Tesla was moving out of this space that they had in this shopping center, they were really consolidating over to their service center area. So
Test drive one there?
yeah, you can test drive. Yeah. So we learned what models are on display, what their availability are, and also all the charging options right there at the center there. And
The other thing that's there is a Volvo dealer that's to the south, and Polestar and Volvo are under the same ownership. So there was
okay,
movement back and forth. I mean, any service.
Yeah,
on
maybe
Polestar
maybe
is
that's
a Volvo you?
Oh, I hadn't really thought a lot about how a Volvo dealer might do service. Okay, all right. So this was just kind of about the sales methods that we were kind of exposed to. Certainly, we saw these different dealers in very different phases of their maturation. VinFast is kind of in a pre-sales mode. They do have a city edition available we'll get to. Polestar was kind of, in a pretty productive mode, ready to get you into a car and sell it to you today kind of thing. Tesla is at an even higher volume, and I thought they were rather dismissive of us, pretty quick with us, because apparently they've got better things to do. They've got a lot going on. They've been talking to current owners or someone without a very specific issue for them to solve.
Are there a lot of other customers there?
No, they just were busy. They were just had other things going on, I think. So, and then also Lucid is just getting their infrastructure in place and building out showrooms. So that was kind of interesting to see as well. Cecilia, just jump in wherever you want here. I'll keep speaking. Okay. So I think one of the questions that I had was, and people can feel free toward the end to pipe in, is like, are we talking about kind of this kind of showroom style as something that's going to continue forward, or is it just a phase in these companies' maturations as they kind of move through, getting their feet under them? So these showrooms, they're super clean. They're not that big. It doesn't take much space to drive one or two cars into, 1,000 square feet or something like that.
So they only have one or two cars?
Well, Polestar only
Inside
have
a
two models.
showroom to
So.
show you.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there weren't like, I don't know, 10 people there? Because I was just thinking, if you only
No.
have two vehicles, like not everyone at one time could sit in one or look at the features or.
I think you bring up a good point. I'd say VinFast had 3 salespeople there, and same for Polestar, 2 to 3, 3 maybe. And the VinFast had 1 car in it, and Polestar had 3 cars in it. But one was a legacy, which was kind of cool to see, the legacy Polestar. So everybody's really nice and informative and there to kind of talk to you about what the features are. It's not what you would consider like walking into maybe a Toyota dealer and just talking to, your general dealer who may not have much EV experience. I thought that, they were pretty well informed. They let you climb all over the cars and get in them and stuff. And they seem to be, we introduced ourselves as chapter members of the NBEAA. We were kind of collecting information and wanting to be positive about what we would convey back. And that was met really well. Like they were like, oh, that's lovely. And they're really nice with us.
But I've talked to the Polestar people over the last 2 years a couple of times and pointed out to them that we'd be happy to have them do a presentation, and that, since we're meeting virtually, they wouldn't even have to come to Sonoma County and give them the web address, right? And they act, well, we're a sub branch of San Jose, so they push it up to San Jose, and nobody's ever
It's
heard
not
of
in
it.
their job description.
Right.
They're retail salespeople. It's like last year they were selling Levi's, and this year they're selling.
Yeah.
But they knew their stuff.
So VinFast, that's the first time I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Well, where are they? Is it an overseas brand?
Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, we'll get
Vietnam,
there.
okay.
Yeah. So,
There you
yeah,
go.
the VinFast are from Vietnam. What we saw were their larger sizes, the VF8 and the VF9. Well, we only saw the VF8. The VF8 and the VF9 is also one that's the most near term and available. But then they're going to come in with some subcompact, like compact SUV sizes or crossover SUV sizes, the VF6 and the VF7 later. So I think in my mind, I was kind of curious about where are these batteries getting made? Who's making the batteries? Who's the parent? Are they going to be around later? You know, how are you going to get the service? That sort of thing. And so the VinFast company is led by the first billionaire out of Vietnam who made his money on packaged noodles in the early 90s, and then kept moving on to bigger and bigger manufacturing. And so I think there are deep pockets there, and it's a really well-funded company, but since Cecilia and I just went, they've had a round of US layoffs and some contraction. And I don't know if that's related to the batteries that they want to put into their cars, and the availability from Sony, because they did come out with a city edition. So we'll get to that too.
Do you know anything about the Sony batteries?
No, I don't. I have some info on each of them about what size they are.
What's this?
Lawrence?
Yeah, so why isn't a car that's made in the US eligible for the IRA?
It's too expensive and it's not made in the US yet.
And the batteries aren't.
Well, I think in future years, they're gonna have that ratcheted up requirement. But
In
yeah,
March-
they're
March
too
there might
expensive
be.
anyway. What's that?
Yeah, okay, I see the price now. Yeah, in March, they're gonna review the battery requirements and they may kick in then, or they may kick them down the can, kick the can down the road again.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when we asked, you know, where do you intend to keep manufacturing these, or do you have any US manufacturing space? You know, they're like, oh yeah, North Carolina, we're gonna manufacture these in North Carolina. And I think that showed some sign of them wanting to line themselves up to get that. You know, maybe they'll get in under that 58,000 or whatever it is for some of their models. But these were clearly like kind of, I think everyone loved that initial Tesla idea of like build luxury first. And so they're just building luxury first and scrambling. So no.
For anyone that doesn't know, Pininfarina is the design center that Ferrari uses, based in Italy. And also, it was kind of connected to this. I just read an article about the US trade deficit, and the author was explaining the data on Vietnam because it was so out of proportion, along with Ireland, for different reasons. But apparently, the assumption is that a lot of manufacturing in China is being
offshore.
Well, I was trying to think of what's the term in the drug cartels where they, I mean, not outsourced, but there's kind of, anyways, like moved through Vietnam and then to the US to escape potential sanctions or anything like that. So that was their explanation for why Vietnam was, you know, punching so far above its economic weight. With Ireland, it was that so many multinational corporations have headquarters there, so they, you know,
The tax structure. The tax structure is very different.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things on the Vietnam, I asked that question too. And the answer I got from somebody was that Vietnam had become a source for so many parts for the Chinese manufacturing facilities that it seemed like a natural thing that Vietnam could come up with its own car because they were in the middle of the place where you're going to source all the parts.
Well, and China's talking about population decline. I mean,
Yeah.
the labor is going to become tighter in China.
Yeah.
So my company has manufacturing centers in both China and in Vietnam, and it's less expensive and the capabilities are on par or better in Vietnam
Interesting.
for electronics and tech.
Well, let me get to what we actually saw. Which is, well, first we were going to tell you a little bit about how you could buy a VinFast today. There is a VF8 City Edition that has a smaller battery. And I think, was it 180 miles? I'm not sure if I put it on the next screen. So we were told, like, let's see.
Mike, what does that make your car?
Yeah, yeah.
The city edition is
Yeah, yeah,
180
mine is
miles.
like.
20
yeah,
versus 180?
Less than a neighborhood.
Yeah, okay, I see what I did.
Yeah, about 180 miles.
Yeah,
Backyard
I think I created a slide for each of the styles of VinFast, so we'll go through this quickly, but basically, these are the ones that they have available. The city edition now, the VF8 and VF9 you can reserve, but we're told that they're gonna start delivering very soon. And then they haven't even priced out their compact SUVs. Cecilia took some really nice photos. This is kind of, I think, one of the cooler features is this front. We'll talk about. So the city edition here, they have it set up so that you can lease it. 207
Whoa.
miles there on the eco range, and then the plus range, 191 as their expected amount. And the one that we saw there was kind of like a pre-production glider type car, but it was probably going to be pretty close to what they were delivering it on the city edition. And you know, it definitely had a pretty luxurious interior. It was a nice looking,
Pretty expensive lease.
big car. It's a big car, and they want you to know it's really cool. But you know,
How long is the lease period?
I don't even know.
2 or 3 years. But that's expensive, Jerry? I mean, I don't even know. Wow.
I think so.
No, all the leases have gone. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so here we've got the battery size for the car that they eventually want to sell you. That's the Sony battery. I wasn't sure if those other 207-mile batteries that they put into the city editions might have been some interim solution to get them going with some, leases. So this one, they've got kind of like the 2 different versions, and you can get like a little sunroof and a slightly more premium speakers and seats and so forth. Both are dual motor, but then the Plus is set up with more torque and power. So that's why you're getting different ranges for each. So they have a spec sheet, but there are a couple things that they leave out of their spec sheet. It's amazing that you can put like 100 details into a spec sheet and leave a couple things out.
Yeah.
And then, they basically only had images of the VF9, which is like kind of a 3-row SUV, much larger. They're planning on 123 kilowatt hours, starting at $83,000. I'm sure all this was decided pre-Inflation Reduction Act, but they're not going to get there on this car, just on price alone. And they did have the WLTP range on this, so that's the European standard, right? And you would expect that to be like 320 or something like that if it were EPA.
Interesting choice of brand name. I mean, I always associate VIN with the vehicle identification number, at least in the United States. So it takes me a while to.
Hey, let's talk about the Nova.
Yeah. The Nova.
The Nova sold in Mexico?
The Nova.
It doesn't go.
Yeah. So, Cecilia, this was our humor section on the VinFast here. The best and quirkiest features. I thought it was really fun to go to these showrooms and just like go, wow, what did you guys build? Let me check it out, and you get to climb in and play with the seats and see, like, this car is a pretty minimalist design and has what I think of as a Model 3 style floating screen in the middle there. But a lot of the future styles you'll see have what we're seeing is kind of the more updated version, which is embedding that screen into the framework of the dashboard. So I think that's a big shift in style. They bring up the designer names. At each of the showrooms, they talk about the designers quite a bit. And so it's like, I think that there's kind of like, we want you to get kind of excited about how things are getting designed and who's designed it and what your color choices are. And they're not talking a lot about some of the things that we usually tend to care about.
Yeah, that price.
Yeah, they're selling to the high end market.
Yeah.
So Cecilia, what's quirky about PRND?
Can you see these 4 buttons along the center there?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
You have to clean them, you know.
do you
Are
push
those are the different buttons for drive?
P,
Park, reverse,
this is
neutral,
P,
and
this
drive?
is R, this is N, and this is D.
Is there a, like a shifter?
No, it's a,
So you push.
you press one of the four buttons, and then when you want something else, you press another of the four buttons.
And so you have to look to make sure you're not pushing the wrong one.
You're right. You're right. That would be quirkiest or
Right, no,
inconvenient.
I think it's a mistake.
Yeah.
Takes up coupling.
It's a little more accessible, I'll say, than what Tesla's doing with the slide to change your triangle.
Yeah.
The Chevy Bolt moved their shifters of buttons on the console. I mean, on the dashboard, I'm told, and I haven't seen it, but it doesn't sound good to me. I like the shifter between the seats.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I like that about the Bolt.
You remember on a Prius, it's on the dash as well. There's something there.
Mhm. But it is a gesture, so
Yeah, it
you
is
know
a
what
gesture,
gesture
yeah.
that you're using. In this case, you're not using a gesture. I don't know. The worst thing on the Bolt is the mode button is right next to the power button, so you can turn your car off on the freeway.
Well, you guys are all driving
Does it actually do
Teslas,
that?
and that dash with the screen off in the middle of the car would drive me crazy. I
It's
want
not
to see,
great.
I want to see what I'm doing
Oh,
without
yeah.
moving my head.
Yeah.
So there's no like
Just get the-
speedometer area.
No,
Right, the Teslas don't have.
Tesla's not having it either.
They kind of, you get really used to it, but it's hard to move from that style to a different style car. So I would think that context switching, I find a little hard.
All I know is that when you become a flight instructor, you spend all your time in the right-hand seat, learning how to read the instruments that are in front of the pilot, which makes it easier for you to fly and make sure the plane stays right side up. Keeping the car right side up with the dash in the center, I don't know how you do it.
Luckily, you won't roll too often, I would think.
You built a custom seat.
Okay, so now on to Polestar. I get, because these were more accessible for me to understand just because they were smaller. I don't know why smaller form factors look easier, but the Polestar 2 starts at 10,000 less than the VinFast. So, you know, you're talking about 49,000 just to get going, but they've got plenty of ways for you to get up in price to 73, I think. And then they just announced after Cecilia and I were here, like, I mean, things are changing so fast that it was like, as we were writing this slide deck, we had to change things. They announced the Polestar 3. The Polestar 3 is a completely different SUV model. So they're still going to be selling these Polestar 2s as well. The batteries are LG Chem. And like David said, this is a brand of Volvo, which is a Geely company. And Geely owns BYD and also owns Zeekr, which is the brand that they seem to be focusing on to bring to the US.
And BYD has a bus factory in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
they're down in Lancaster.
So,
These Polestars are built at the China Volvo plant right now. And they look like they're going to be built in South Carolina in 2024. So VinFast in North Carolina, Polestar in South Carolina. The Inflation Reduction Act eligibility, definitely not yet. They're definitely not on the list that has been sent out through, you know, various news agencies so far. And I thought, I looked up the designer because I couldn't remember what we talked about, Cecilia, in the showroom floor. And the designer is listed as the Polestar CEO, Thomas Ingenlath, who, you know, started out at Volvo as a designer. The big thing that they want to tell you about at Polestar is how sustainable they are, both on the materials side and through their manufacturing side, and also how transparent they are about their sustainability. And, you know, I think it's going to become something like, you know, the Patagonia of cars, because they're really interested in letting you know, every molecule of CO2 involved across the board. And they're certainly kind of cool looking on the inside. Not that the VinFast weren't, they were pretty cool looking too. So the Polestar 2 has model years, which is something that the showroom people didn't really talk about. They clearly had like, what did you say, Cecilia, 20 in stock that you could, test drive and drive off with. And so.
At the Corte Madera store?
Yeah, right in Corte Madera. And a guy in front of us was just buying one and getting it all set up and said, I'll be right back for it or whatever, and so it was kind of cool. You were like there watching people buy cars.
Do they keep them in the showroom? Or is there
No.
like part of the parking lot that Polestar owns or rents?
They had a couple parked outside out front. So they had a showroom and they had, clearly you can't get cars in and out of a showroom easily. It's all glassed in. And those were gonna stay put, but they had a couple out front. And they must have had some more. We have a couple pictures of where cars charge throughout the whole center. And so they must have been parking them somewhere else. Or at the Volvo dealership.
The slide here brings up something where we were going to have a talk on this at one point. When you're shopping for an EV, what should you be looking for? What are the features? I mean, you have one right here, which I was about to ask about, and it's up there, how fast will it charge? 205 kilowatt. Can I go to a 350? Okay, I'll get 205 kilowatt.
Yep.
But, there's other things I'd love to know about. I mean, I was going to ask, does this have V2G in it? Does it,
Yeah.
what voltage circuit does it have on it? Things like that.
I think those are pretty advanced questions for most EV buyers.
Yeah, but
And they're advanced for the salesman too.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I asked the salesman, does one have a heat pump?
Oh, I asked that question and it totally stumped them.
What's a heat pump?
They eventually decided that VinFast absolutely needed to have a heat pump. They must have a heat pump. But I could tell by the way they were answering it, they didn't really know what they were talking about.
Yeah, I think at that point they thought we were asking if there was a heat pump for the heated seats.
Yeah, they were very confused by us. I think another question which kind of came out of the spec sheets for these was, why can't we have a standard for like, there was one manufacturer, maybe Polestar, that said from 0 to 80%, it will take you this many minutes. And I thought, well, if that's what we're all gonna.
That's the standard most of them show.
Yeah, well, it should be.
I would have put it
10
in, but I didn't
10
see
to
it
80.
twice. Or 10 to 80. Yeah, it should be 10 to 80, right? Because you can do
And
that.
they should give you both 10 to 60 and 10 to 80 so you can see
Mhm.
the slowdown.
Is there a standard sales label for EVs in the same way there is for
No.
gasoline
No.
vehicles?
Oh, they're just
like nutrition labels and all that stuff?
There's only
It's
one
basically the
value,
old-
MPGE.
Okay.
Yeah, so. I don't
And
know what
fuel
it tells you.
saving, but that's the same as
Oh,
on the
fuel
gasoline.
savings.
I'm surprised you said 10 to 60 and then 10 to 80, because I've never seen curtailment between 60 and 80.
Well, I'll show you the graph
Okay.
of P3.
Okay. So on the Polestar 2s, they've got like, kind of even the most basic one and the premium one, they were clearly like, okay, we've added quite a bit to this car, they were pretty upper end. The center console, I don't know if you can pick it up on this view. Oh yeah, the lower right screen can kind of show you the center console, possibly unnecessarily like slopes upward toward the dash. So when you sit in it, you're really in a tight cockpit kind of style with everything kind of like very close to you. And then they built some side pockets into that center console on either side, so you can drop your magazine in there or something like that. And so it was a little bit the opposite of a living room feature where, it seems like a lot of other cars are like, let's give you as much open space as possible. It had like a stitched dash. It was very like wool oriented, that sort of thing. Cecilia added the useful tidbit, you can just go get one of these. And I've seen a few around the Barlow and Sebastopol, so it looks like a good fit for some people in Sebastopol, but none of us have one, so someone needs to get one.
There's one on my block.
Okay,
I haven't talked to him yet. Though.
yeah.
It was on my list, but the back seat's a little tight.
The back seat's probably tight, yeah.
Boys are still small.
Yeah.
Well, they're small.
Right.
the other thing is that the Polestar 2 has kind of like a square grid pattern on their front dash, and you'll see the Polestar 3 change. So I think there's some changes probably coming backward to the Polestar 2. So the Polestar 3, this crossover SUV style,
Wow.
very high price,
Yeah.
has a different front end style that I bet they'll bring backward to the Polestar 2. Yeah, so I don't know, when we were poking through all this, we didn't see, like, VinFast is not far enough along to give us that much around charging speeds and stuff, so we only have a little bit on the Polestar. Then Tesla. If you've been to the service center in San Rafael, they're just moving their showroom over there, so they're not gonna be next to the Nordstrom anymore. They were like right across from the Apple store here, and they were open, but when we walked in, they said they didn't really want us to take pictures because they were kind of ripping things apart, I guess. So we didn't have a chance to talk to them too much. Cecilia and I poked around behind the Teslas and the Tesla showroom here, and they had a bunch, and they were offering people test drives out of it and things like that. Yeah. Then there was a big space, all kind of mapped out with Lucid Air information. This is a $138,000 car, so it's not going to qualify on price for any
I can get an airplane for that.
Inflation Reduction Act money, but I think it would be very interesting in the future to go down and just see what a Lucid Air looks like and what they're doing. My cousin just got like a Porsche Taycan. I don't know how much those are. If they're in that same price range, but so there are a few luxury EVs out there. These are the maps and pictures of the charging. When you're in this shopping center, it's like there's no side of it that doesn't have EV charging going on. First, you see like 4 big Volta chargers on the front side.
Well, they've got an Apple store in that shopping center too.
And there's an Apple store in there, yeah.
Because I've heard that Montgomery Village, with the new owners, which is a shopping center in Santa Rosa, for anyone that doesn't know, is kind of trying to be modeled off after this shopping center in Corte Madera as like an upscale outdoor shopping center.
That's interesting.
And some people were proposing that the Apple store, consumers, not actually people within the company or organization, that the Apple store in the plaza moved to Montgomery Village. So just interesting to see the comparison.
Yeah, what's interesting is there are parts that they can replicate and then parts that they may not be able to replicate. And maybe they could use some encouragement to replicate some of the electric.
I hate this idea of, like I said, I went to that one place in Soledad, and all of the EV charging stations in Soledad are in this shopping center from multiple companies. And I'm going, they probably did that because they can get the power there, but is that the right way to do it for people who are traveling on? In reality, we're all going to charge in our garages unless we're going on a trip. So this says along the highways is where you want to have the charging, not in shopping centers.
I always thought that the reasons they did shopping centers was because
not everybody has a place they can charge at home, especially since that bill was vetoed.
That's a good point. I knew somebody would jump in with that one.
Oh, I thought it was because
I'm sorry, you're right.
EVs take so much longer to charge than it takes to refuel a gasoline vehicle.
But
so people would have to wait.
Yeah, but that's changing. I mean, obviously figuring that out, 350 kilowatt, if you can actually dump that, for 200 miles worth of range, you're sitting there for 8 minutes.
All of these stations were super busy. The Tesla had a line like of 1 to 2 cars. It looked like all the Voltas were in use, and the EV Go's were in use because they had a lot of non-Teslas. So apparently they needed more charging at this location already, plus freeway charging, I would think.
Has anybody seen any of the new Tesla stations that do do CCS as well?
I haven't.
Because they've written a contract with the government to.
There's
No,
one in Pasadena that they did really early on. I
Okay.
should check it out. Yeah. Caleb, did you have? comment?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, so with the highway charging, I agree that for trips it makes a lot of sense, but since I've moved, I haven't had access to reach my charger because we'd have tons of junk in our garage. And so I've been fast charging every day at a Electrify America station that's at a Target right off of I-5. And it's been really convenient for me to plug my car in and then do half an hour shopping and come back and head home. So it's, from that perspective, even though I have access to home charging, I have 3 years of free charging at Electrify America. And it was, it's pretty convenient to just drop it and go shopping for half an hour.
yeah,
So how did you get free charging for 3 years?
It came as part of the ID4 purchase.
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen.
Lawrence? Yeah.
So as far as charging for people who can't charge at home, I would love to see more street side chargers on power poles and street lighting poles. This is being done in Europe in some cities around well, I think LA is doing it, but around the US in general. And especially since, we had that veto of new construction anyways, getting multifamily units to have charging or a lot of charging for people. Having it on the streets around level 2 charging would be great. And it doesn't require much infrastructure because the power is already there. There's a question of metering, but you can talk to the charger and use the charger's meter and not have a separate meter if you want. So there are definitely ways around it.
There's we were looking at it, Woody's group was looking at it for Sebastopol because I saw an article about a company in Brooklyn that's been doing this with the power company and providing it. The big difference between Europe and here that I have recognized is it's easier in Europe to do it because the cable is not included with the charge station. You bring your own cable. And that's a major issue, I think. And that's going to make the street side more complicated here, though it has been occurring in some cities.
I don't know if Henry told you, but there's this type that they've installed in Seattle where the cord is out of reach until you swipe it with your app.
Oh,
swipe a
really?
little
No, he
switch
didn't
here,
tell me that.
And then the cord comes down.
Oh.
And so I thought, well, that's interesting because it, prevents both the clutter and the vandalism aspect.
Right, and the
It's out of reach
vandalism-
until it
The
comes
vandalism
down
has been
toward
pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah, the vandalism is getting worse. I mean, yeah.
But that ain't going to be a cheap mechanism. There's a lot of expense in that above just having an outlet that turns on, with
But
the
the
cord
solution
attached.
is to every car to have cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other piece of it is that fast charging is convenient, but some people, and especially some kinds of cars, might have more battery degradation with regular fast charging than with regular level 2 charging.
The CEO of this facility, Sonoma Clean Power, met with us, not here, but in another forum I'm in. And he's pushing really hard for workplace charging. So for those of you who work, that's the solution that he's looking at. For those of us who are unemployed, if we lived in apartments, we might have a problem.
But I thought Kimberly was here last time, was saying that they were mostly targeting nonprofit workplaces.
That's for their program.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff's been on a bandwagon that every workplace should have charge stations. So people go because and they did that at their facility here, if you guys park there, so that you're using the cleanest power possible.
I just wanted to point out that, of course, the Volta is just level 2. The Tesla stations, they do have level 2 there, but that's just for their test drive vehicles. But they have the urban superchargers, which are 72 kilowatts, which are not the fastest. So it seems like this is mostly geared towards people who are don't have anywhere else to charge.
So see, on your car, how fast is the supercharge? How many kilowatts?
It can charge up to 250 kilowatts.
You can, okay, all right.
Actually, yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Do we have any idea what percentage of chargers are the 350s that you mentioned?
They're just rolling out now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that was, I'm gonna go, I think we have a few minutes, so I'm
Okay.
gonna go back to slide 31.
One of the points I'd like to know, if John may have information on this, or Caleb. I was wondering if you only get the high charge rates if you end up with an electrical bus, which is at a higher voltage also, because otherwise you have to have a pretty heavy cable to make it into the car, don't you?
The cables are cooled for the high end ones, and those
Okay.
are
Right.
400 volts, I think. So,
Okay, and so they can do it to a 400 volt or a 350 volt circuit? And still go at 350 kilowatt?
I don't actually know, but I thought so.
Most of the 350 kilowatt stations are created with the capacity for the 800 volt architecture. Really 900 volts is what they go up to, but they all use a set of, you know, a stack of DC to DC converters in the stations. So the majority of stations rolling out, regardless of their capacity, have the ability to go up to that 800 volt architecture. But they will, obviously they scale down for the 400 volt cars.
Okay.
Yeah, and before we get back to the news, I just want to encourage people, if you're around Corte Madera there, or you know someone that needs kind of a broader understanding of the availability of cars, that's a place that you can poke around and learn a few things.
Yeah.
And, you know, certainly when you think about legacy car dealerships down there, et cetera, there's some more, but maybe we'll get some in Montgomery Village in the future.
Let's go on the next one.
Yeah. All right.
I put this one together, I'm trying to remember.
Well, I think the
Oh, yeah,
orange
yeah, yeah.
line tells
Yeah,
you the story.
that's the main point. We need to change when we're charging our cars. But when? We need to be charging them during the day. Right now, there's a disconnect between the tariffs that we have in California and the profile, and in fact, where the state wants us to be as far as energy on our vehicles. And they want us charging during the day when we have clean energy. In fact, we have surplus energy now. There's one talk at Stanford talking about a couple of times last year, we had to pump energy in the middle of the day out of the state because we just couldn't handle all of it. We didn't have enough places to put it. And we're talking about storage, different methods of storage.
Use your car to store.
Use your car to store. And that's what Jeff Cypress has been saying too. Use your car to store in the middle of the day. I've been trying to do it myself now.
Well, that would require a lot of workplace charging that doesn't exist right now.
So the point of the slide, now I look at it real fast. The point of the slide had to do with peak power pole, peak energy pole. And right now our peaks misalign with when our peak energy availability is. And the point was to create price signals that will now incentivize people to charge your vehicles at the right time. It's a combination of what we see out in the front of this building. Electrify everything is one move that we need, but at the same time, we're electrifying our vehicles, and the vehicles did not account for a lot of electrification. Now they're going to be a larger and larger percentage of it. And so we need to find a way to start getting the renewables into the places where we can use them. Storing energy is one piece.
You know how we get a flex alert like 4 or 6 afternoons of summer? Could we get like an opposite of a flex alert that says, right now is a really good time to start using power? And like, I guess my behind that question is like, does that happen 6 times a year, or does it happen like, I don't know, every single, like do this every single day?
So it's happening, last year it happened twice, okay, from PG&E's point of view. Okay? It's gonna happen more and more because we're bringing on renewables at it's not a linear rate, it's an accelerating rate. Solar, if they ever get to the windmills, offshore windmills will account for a very large peak. Now they're gonna be a little more, turns out windmills are better than solar because when the cloud comes over your roof, the wind will just keep spinning or over the ocean.
Yeah, they're different.
They're different. And there's places in the world where the wind will always be constant. When we flew to Europe recently, it's amazing. You find the windmills 100 miles off the coast, windmill farms. Somebody corrected me in one presentation I gave, I think last month, when I said we only have 7 or 6 offshore windmills. And somebody said, no, you mean farms. I was right. We only have 7 offshore windmills off the shore of the United States today. There's thousands off of Europe.
Wind turbines.
Okay, wind turbines, only 7 turbines, not farms. So anyway, that's what the push is here on the slide. And it said Europe is in worse shape than we are. That's why they're more aggressive and getting more renewables and trying to change when charging is done.
I think it's also.
Lawrence, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I've been filling the chat with things, but my understanding is that wind and solar is curtailed frequently in California. You know, maybe PG&E doesn't see it, but my understanding is that the fossil fuel and nuclear plants, A, they're harder to ramp up and down, and B, they've got older preferential contracts that allow them to sell their power. And the wind and solar folks have to shut down. So people see these wind turbines that are stopped or spinning really slowly and go, oh, they're broken. It's like, no, they're just turned off because they can't sell their power right now.
Yeah. And was a really good talk at Stanford recently on this, and they were talking about the major thing that we need in California at this point is storage. And we were talking about different methods of storage because we've got the energy, but we don't have a place to put it at the time that we've got the energy. So
Exactly. The other piece that I've been hearing is putting solar canopies over daytime charging spots. And what this allows you to do is do lots of daytime charging without increasing the grid's capability to get power in there, whether it's local grid or the regional grid. And also, depending on how it's done, you can avoid panel upgrades and service wire upgrades to the site.
Yeah. So I put 2 slides on this because there was so much information on it. So I suggested people go back to the presentation and take a look at it. There's a presentation I've been putting together just for myself, which was, again, from another book that Zano had me read, which was talking about if we electrify everything, what does that mean? And there's a chapter in that book that does a calculation and identifies that we need 60% less energy to do everything that we do today if we electrify everything, which was really interesting. I listened to a talk recently, Klein talking to McKibben, talking about 40% of sea traffic that we have today, shipping on seas, is moving energy around.
Oh, so it's not in a California sense. They're talking about it in a
The whole
global
global.
sense.
Okay, the whole global sense of the calculation of saying if we electrify every way, we would fit for California as well, but if we electrify everything, we need so much less source energy. And a lot of it is we can stop expending the energy we use for delivering energy and converting energy. So I'm trying to put a deck together that makes it a little bit simpler than the
You were mentioning the windmills offshore. I'm sorry, the wind turbines, Woody. When you were mentioning the wind turbines offshore, I think you said there were 100 miles offshore?
Well, in the case of Europe, we're flying into Europe and you can find them 100 miles offshore, yeah.
Because I don't remember, there's a formula for the loss of, what is it?
Yeah, I don't know how they get the power.
Electricity power over certain distances.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was one of the things that I always preferred about solar was that it was much more distributed because you could just put it on your roof.
There was one calculation and proposal to put windmills on the southern edge of Greenland because the wind always blows from there because it's cold and it blows down, and then running a DC line from Europe to North America and across the country. So we have full-time renewable energy. And so we are talking about long distances. I don't know how they do it. The other physicists might know how they do it, but I don't.
Well, it's all improved dramatically because they're putting in DC transmission lines in Asia.
Yeah.
And you used to say, well, that
you don't want to do that.
Right. And
well, we didn't have the electronics to do it, quite frankly, because you couldn't change the voltages easily unless you had a transformer, and transformer ain't gonna work.
This is a bit of a tangent, but I'll bring it up in a very small way. One of the things that, because I'm into digital currencies and Bitcoin and stuff like that, one of the things that they often talk about is when you separate the production of electricity from the consumption of electricity, as it is where most humans live very far away from most large power plants, transmission is a much bigger issue. And one of the things when you have a mine, which is basically a device that performs computer calculations to create or secure the Bitcoin network, that you can move much closer to places like Greenland, where they actually would use the power on site instead of where the people are, which is often much further away from sites like that.
That's a part of putting that deck together. I was looking at the numbers on transmission, and I always thought it was abysmal. It's not that bad. I mean, we're talking about single-digit percentage losses over long distances.
Let's
Yeah.
do like
Yeah.
a couple more slides.
Okay.
Because there's some, someone might be buying a
That one
car
must be
this
yours,
month.
right?
No, this is Caleb's.
Oh, Caleb's. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chevy's, been talking about their launches of new vehicles for a while now. So far, they have the Bolt, and previously the Volt. So the Bolt comes in two trims now, but the new models coming out this year, the Blazer, the Equinox, and the Silverado, kind of fill in the rest of their, their midline compact SUV and not so much larger SUV, but a mid-sized SUV. So the Equinox is going to be the lowest cost of the three new offerings, and obviously with Chevy they have lots of different trim options. So I listed the lowest prices, kind of the starting prices, but the Silverado, for example, that one is going to be a $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and $80,000 trim versions of that Silverado, and I'm sure there's going to be some other packages you can throw on it to make it excessive. Similarly with the Blazer and the Equinox, but to get into a front or rear wheel drive version of either the Blazer or the Equinox, you're looking at starting prices under 50,000, which it's pretty good for that segment. But they're starting to take reservations for the Silverado, but the other two, Blazer and Equinox, you just have to wait and see when they hit the shelves.
You sent me that job posting on B2G with GM.
Yeah.
Have they announced any vehicles that they're supporting?
So as far as I know today, the support is with the Blazer, or the Blazer is supposed to get some of that support, and the Silverado. I would be surprised if the Equinox has it in this lower trim model, but perhaps in the higher trims they would open it up.
So one more, and then we might need to wrap on a few of these extras, but this is along the same lines, the EV9. So this is your kind of maybe, let's call it the largest size SUV, a 3-row, 6-person, also available fall 2023, starting at about 55. The range will be about 300 miles, electric stated 400, so there's probably two battery sizes there. The hood will have a solar panel, and it will support 350 kilowatt charging. And yeah, I don't know why I put this note about heat pumps. I think I was aware at the time that we want to start tracking. Why are they putting them into some cars and not others?
So on the EV6, I tracked down through that because I care about heat pumps.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised. It was the heat pumps were only on the dual motor versions, and the dual motor versions have a shorter range. So I was wondering if they put the heat pumps on the dual motor versions because the range was so low and they didn't want to. I don't know why they wouldn't put on all of them.
There must be a cost related to it that they're.
I'm sure there's a
cutting
cost
corners.
related to it, yeah.
Cutting corners in some cases, yeah.
Polestar is similar. They only put the heat pump within their Plus package.
Got it.
Well, but this wasn't necessarily, it was on the dual motor versions.
But the
with
Plus
reduced
package
range.
might be also the dual motor version, right, Caleb? Like, I can't recall if both are dual motor or, no, one's
Yeah,
a rear
so-
wheel drive right now.
Right. So you can actually get the Polestar in the front wheel drive format with the heat pump, because you can get the Plus and the Performance, and then there's one other package. I think they have 3 packages. You can get them on any version with Polestar, which is somewhat unique. The Performance package, I think you have to get with the all-wheel drive though.
Yeah, I mean, with the Kia EV6, I wanted the mid-range version with the longer mileage. And I need the Plus, because Plus usually has things I don't care about, and I didn't want two motors, but I did want a heat pump. So, but this is, I think I put this slide together, right? I don't think you did this one.
I did it.
Oh, you did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Because
You
is this on
commented
this?
on it. You commented on it. Right?
Oh, yeah. Is this on the same platform as the EV6 and the platform, the
Yeah.
Ioniq 5?
Yeah,
So it's the same basic platform with a different body.
yeah.
I'm a little surprised, Caleb, that you mentioned that the heat pumps for the Polestars are considered a plus, and maybe this is just different terminology, kind of option. Because on the VinFast, the way that they separated the different models was as Eco and as Plus. And the Plus was much more expensive. The Eco was much more geared towards like range and efficiency, and the Plus was much more geared towards luxury, I'm guessing. So it may be interesting, as you were talking about with Polestar being very sustainability oriented in terms of their marketing, and how that branches out.
We don't know what benchmarks they're trying to hit in Europe as well. And you think about, I've started to wrap my head around the Inflation Reduction Act and how that would, cause them to design different, different models. Maybe there's something in Europe.
How close did we make it through the slides today?
So we made it through 34. You've got 3 or 4 more.
That's okay. We got
4
12 more
non-humor
articles sitting there
items.
nobody's done yet, so it's
I
fine.
did like 6 of them. There's maybe 6 articles.
Okay, good.
Cecilia, did you want to end on any one humor item, or should we wrap up?
Please, go ahead. Let's
Let's do the last one. So this was Toyota has their Toyota-thon event, and we know that Toyota has been a little bit lacking when it comes to switching to producing EVs. So Public Citizen did a parody on the Toyota-thon. They call it Toyota-yon. It's a cute little video. If you want to watch that. And also The Onion had another parody about Toyota-thon's enthusiasm in their commercials. So you can check out that article on Clean Technica that has links to both of those.
Yeah, they've changed their leadership now, but there hasn't been anything new coming out of Toyota.
Well, they do have an EV that was co-designed with Subaru. So Subaru and Toyota are releasing the same car, the same platform.
Gotcha. Is it a Crosstrek?
I don't know.
Okay.
Did any know the relationship between Kia and Hyundai?
Hyundai owns 49 or 51% of Kia.
Okay,
like that.
that explains it. Okay.
Right. So they're basically the same company.
Well, it's 12:10, so we'll wrap up. We can stop recording. Thanks, everybody.